A large storm is coming to the United States over the next few days, and this will cause more problems than expected, including significant snowfall accumulation from the Central Plains to the Midwest, an increased risk of severe weather, and as well as a big cold blast. And then after this storm system, we're going to have to deal with another storm later this weekend that'll bring even more problems. So in today's forecast, we are going to break down exactly what you need to know about the weather that'll be impacting the United States over the next 7 days, and we'll begin with what's happening across the country today. And I want to begin first with that big storm system that is now off the east coast of the United States, because this is what brought our tornado outbreak on both Friday and Saturday. And I do have some more updates for you. We are now up to 3 EF4 tornadoes that have been confirmed from both Friday and Saturday. Well over 70 tornadoes now have been confirmed from this tornado outbreak, and at the end of the day, we're probably going to have over 100 tornadoes confirmed just in that 48-hour time frame. And there's also a swath of damaging winds both in the Midwest and the Northeast that I'll show you in just a moment. But this was a substantial tornado outbreak, over 40 deaths as well from the severe weather, in addition to the dust storms that we had. So again, really substantial storm, one of the deadliest tornado outbreaks that we've seen in over 5 years. Back over in the Great Plains, we're not really talking about much activity right now, but a large storm is going to be forming over the next 24 hours back over in the Central Plains. This is bound to bring a significant winter storm threat to areas like the Midwest. And then eventually, as we go into late Wednesday and into Thursday, a risk for severe weather will spawn back over in the Ohio Valley, back through the deep south, and we'll be talking even about a little bit of snow and rain back over in the Northeast. So if we combine all 3 days, these are all the different damage reports and tornado reports that we had. Notice that we had really 2 large swaths of damaging winds, one in the Midwest, one back over in the Northeast, and then we also had a lot of different tornadoes. And again, these are tornado reports. It does not necessarily account for tornadoes that may have not been reported, but we did have a lot of those back over in the Midwest, and as well as even back through the Mississippi River Valley. And then as we went into Saturday, a bunch of different tornado reports there across the Dixie Alley. I also want to point out that just in northern Arkansas alone, there were 4 different tornadoes at least at EF3 intensity. We even had one that was a borderline EF5 tornado. And so right around Batesville there in northern Arkansas, several different intense tornadoes that happened there. And we even had one back over in southern Mississippi. This was also an EF4 tornado. And look at this, right next to that EF4, we even had an EF3 tornado near Tylertown, Mississippi. Those were within about a mile of each other. So that is unbelievable, to say the least. So definitely a substantial tornado outbreak here, and definitely one that we'll remember for a long time. And just for reference, this is some of the damage that we had from the EF4 Tylertown tornado. This was actually classified as EF3 damage, but nonetheless, it was rated officially as an EF4 tornado. At its peak intensity, definitely substantial damage, and it's going to take a long time for some of these towns and even cities to rebuild. And no, this is not an April Fool's joke. We actually have a 10% chance over the next 48 hours of seeing tropical development back over north of the Lesser Antilles. This is unbelievable, to say the least. This has actually just been issued as of yesterday afternoon by the National Hurricane Center. You hardly ever see this in the month of March, but we actually do technically have a chance. Now, this will not impact the United States by any means. We're not talking about a hurricane developing, but we could see a very short-lived tropical system develop. And if that does happen, that would be a very rare instance. We hardly ever see tropical systems form in the month of March. So definitely something to keep an eye on. We'll keep you posted on our Facebook and Twitter pages at MaxVelocityWX if anything transpires out of this. But overall, definitely a very shocking and very rare instance here in March that we have a tropical outlook from the National Hurricane Center. Now let's talk more about that big storm that is coming to the United States tonight and into tomorrow. This is what it looks like tonight. We're actually going to begin to see some snow falling back over in Nebraska and Kansas. As we go into the overnight hours, that snow is going to start to spill into areas like the Midwest. And this is not going to be your light, ordinary, March snow. We're talking about a big winter storm here that's actually going to bring the potential for blizzard conditions from Kansas all the way back over into Iowa and Minnesota. So definitely a big deal here. As we go into Wednesday around lunchtime, this snow is just going to keep getting heavier, and we are talking about a very thin but narrow corridor where there is going to be substantial snowfall happening back from central Wisconsin even down into Kansas City, where there could be snowfall rates as high as 2 to even 3 inches per hour, in addition to very strong winds that'll lead to very low visibility and blowing snow. As we go into Wednesday afternoon, that snow is going to keep going over in the Midwest, but we're also going to be watching for a risk of severe weather here across the deep south and also back into the Midwest. where damaging winds is the primary concern, but there could be an isolated tornado or two back over in Illinois or Indiana. As we go into the evening hours, that snow continues back over near Chicago and as well as southern Wisconsin. And then as we go into Thursday, the storm system is becoming a lot less organized, but it will still pose a threat there for a few showers and thunderstorms on the East Coast, and there will still be some light to moderate snowfall in the Ohio Valley on Thursday. And then eventually, as we go into Friday, there will be still a little bit of snowfall there left back over in the Northeast. It's a bit of a question mark what's exactly going to happen in the Northeast, but I do think at least a few inches of snow will be possible in central and northern New England. We'll talk more about the severe weather risk and that other big storm this weekend in just a moment, but I do want to talk about the snowfall accumulation. We were talking about a lot of snow out of this winter storm, mainly across northern Iowa, eastern Nebraska, and southern Minnesota, where 8 to 12 inches of snow is in the forecast. If you're back over in central Wisconsin and the upper peninsula of Michigan, once again, talking about a good amount of snowfall up there, 6 to 10 inches in most of those areas. We also could see a coating to a couple of inches, even back over to northern Illinois and southern Wisconsin and eastern Iowa. I do think this is a little bit of an underestimate, but nonetheless, not really expecting much accumulation in those areas. And then also back over near Kansas City, though there's not really much accumulation in the forecast, there could still be some problems when it comes to blowing snow due to high winds. Now, this storm system is going to be very strong. Our low pressure system is down to around 985 millibars by late tonight, which is not far off from what we just had just a few days ago with that big tornado outbreak. However, there are some limiting factors, including the amount of moisture that we're going to have as we go into Wednesday back over in the Midwest and also back into the deep south. Notice how the dew points are only forecasted to be in the low to mid 50s in the Ohio Valley and the Midwest, and barely getting near 60 even near the Gulf Coast, which is not very common, especially for this time of the year. But the biggest reason why is because a lot of that moisture was already used up from the other storm system. So it's going to be hard to pull all that moisture back up to the north. It's going to kind of be a weaker storm system in general when it comes to the severe weather risk, which is why we're not expecting another tornado outbreak, even though there will be a pretty good amount of wind shear and as well as even a decent amount of instability. It's just going to really come down to the amount of moisture that we have, and honestly, it's not looking very impressive, at least for the Midwest. So the severe weather over the next couple of days looks like this. For tonight, we're not expecting anything crazy, just a couple of storms that'll produce some hail and wind back over in Iowa and eastern Nebraska. By the way, you're going to see snowfall basically right after seeing maybe an isolated severe storm. Really crazy stuff over there. As we go into wacky weather Wednesday, the risk of severe weather will shift east. Our risk of severe weather has been upgraded. We are now up to a slight risk of severe weather for Illinois and Indiana, with damaging winds and hail being our main concerns. But again, I would not rule out an isolated tornado or two in this region. And then across the board, the main concern is just wind and hail. I wouldn't also rule out an isolated brief spin up, even back over into Tennessee, Kentucky, Alabama, or Mississippi. Despite this environment not being very favorable when it comes to moisture, I still think a tornado is possible. I also want to point out that the SPC does not currently have a tornado risk outlined. However, I still would not rule out a tornado or two, despite there not being a current risk outlined. But if any tornado does occur, we're not talking about strong and long track tornadoes. We are talking about the brief and weak variety. If for some reason this event does become a little bit more concerning, there is a low chance that we'll go live tomorrow. So make sure that you are subscribed to the channel and click the bell icon down below so you're notified if we do go live tomorrow. Now, this storm system is actually going to bring even more problems, including a risk for fires and high winds. This is what it looks like by tonight. Very strong wind gusts across the central and southern plains, right around 50 to 65 miles per hour in some areas. As we go into tomorrow morning, the winds are really getting strong back over in the central plains, which will lead to blizzard conditions in some locations. Could even have some areas near 70 mile per hour wind gusts, which is absolutely crazy. As we go into Wednesday afternoon, those winds stay high across the Midwest and as well as the central plains. And then as we go into Thursday morning, the winds are starting to get a little bit calmer there across both the Midwest and the Great Plains, but there will still be a fire risk in place there in Texas, New Mexico, and Oklahoma. And then back over on the East Coast, the strongest winds will be Wednesday afternoon in the Ohio Valley. Most areas right around 30 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts. And then by Thursday, the winds are still strong, but not nearly as intense. 20 to 40 mile per hour wind gusts, basically anywhere there east of Missouri. And this will also lead to colder weather for many of you, and we'll talk more about that here in a second. And there is a risk of fires over the next few days. We have an extreme risk for fires, which is the highest level of concern when it comes to our fire weather outlooks back over in West Texas and western Oklahoma. As we go into tomorrow, that risk is a little bit smaller there in the southern plains. We even have an elevated risk near the Appalachian Mountains. And then as we go into Thursday, the risk continues across the high plains. And then Friday, we have yet again another more significant risk for fires in both Oklahoma and Texas. So make sure you're spreading the word about this, and also make sure that you are doing your part in preventing wildfires. So after this big storm system moves across the Great Plains, Midwest, and Northeast, we will be quieting down as we go into Friday, but we're not going to have to wait long for another big storm system, because as we go into late Sunday and Monday, we are anticipating another large storm across the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, and back into the Southeast. There is a concern here that we will see the return of at least some significant severe weather. I don't think we're going to be seeing a repeat of what we just saw a few days ago, but we could still see some severe weather, including damaging winds, hail, and tornadoes. We'll talk more about the risk in just a second, but as we go into late Sunday into early Monday, I think our main concern is really going to be in this region here. So that's mainly from East Texas all the way back into Georgia and Tennessee. Not very far off from that risk that we just had on Saturday, but keep in mind the environment is entirely different out of the storm system, and I honestly think whatever we see here will be more based towards wind instead of tornadoes. And then as we go into Monday, the storm system is moving into the Northeast, and we could even see some late March snowfall in both the Midwest and the Northeast on Monday, and then by Tuesday into Wednesday, things start to become a lot more uncertain. But keep in mind, as we even go closer to April, I do think we're going to continue to see some big storm systems. Again, the amount of severe weather that we see is just going to keep increasing because of the fact that we're getting closer to the peak of severe weather season. So buckle up, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and we'll keep you posted with the latest on everything that you need to know about these big storms that are coming. And the Storm Prediction Center has already issued a slight risk of severe weather for Sunday back over in the lower Mississippi River Valley. Again, this is a very small area in general. We're talking mainly about a wind and hail risk with maybe a couple of tornadoes being possible. This risk will definitely get larger, I think, as we get closer. It's just a matter of confidence at this point in terms of where we're going to be seeing severe weather. So make sure you stay tuned to the channel as there's more new updates. We'll keep you posted with the latest. And then lastly, our temperature roller coaster will continue for the next several days. Colder air is going to usher in as we go into Thursday and Friday all along the East Coast and even in the Ohio Valley. By the weekend, we're mostly dealing with around average temperatures in most of the country. Very small differences across the board, but a couple areas to note that'll have some much more cold weather in place, mainly in the Northeast and the Northern Plains, but those are just quick shots at cold air. Then by early next week, that cold air is mainly in the Midwest, Ohio Valley, and back into the Northeast, where below average temperatures will continue. But the good news is that, guys, we're going into spring. Not many more Arctic blasts are in the future, so if you were really looking forward to some really frigid negative 20-degree weather, I think we're really done with that for most of the United States. And as always, thank you all so much for watching today's video. If you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe down below. And as a reminder, our 1 million subscriber merch is still available at shopmaxvelocity.net. This is one of the best ways to support what we do here on this channel. So if you want to support us, you can check this out. We have our signed hats still available in addition to t-shirts, mugs, posters, stickers, and a lot more. And you can check this out, top link in the description below, or shopmaxvelocity.net.